It's really interesting how it's almost like during that time that a lot of the wrestlers stole a lot of the gay energy almost. It's
Fuck
almost
yeah.
like the WWE, you couldn't, even no matter how much gaying you were doing, you couldn't top. Look at this. You couldn't top this.
No. Well, there was a guy there was always characters that pushed the envelope in that way. Like Gorgeous George in the 1950s was the guy who Muhammad Ali credits Gorgeous George a lot for being a talker and said he got a lot of it from that. But he had the curly blonde hair areas. And, not to be confused with Macho Man's girlfriend from the 90s, whose name is also Gorgeous George.
Yeah.
But Gorgeous George used to curl his hair, and he was a super heel. So, the wrestler would, they'd go to lock up, and he'd go, "Get your filthy hands off of me!" And he was quite flamboyant. And I think for a lot of guys like Dusty Rhodes and stuff, I mean, you want to talk about Jesse Ventura talking for 7 hours. I love professional wrestling, so I'm sorry. But, guy like Dusty Rhodes is like, well, I'm going to wear this hat, and I'm going to the tickle trunk for this and that, my aunt's thing. There was I just saw an interview with Mick Foley where he was talking about with Conrad Thompson. They do those, they do these long wrestling. He has so many wrestling podcasts, Conrad Thompson. And he was saying that him and his wife would go, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley's old character in the 90s, that they would go to Lane Bryant and shit and just get, because, Mick Foley didn't want to show off his entire body. So he would have like the tights that said Cactus and Jack, and he'd wear the snakeskin boots. And then he'd have like something like leopard print, and they would just modify it. I think there's a long history of wrestlers, because they got to be colorful. They got to find their gimmick and what sets them apart. And then there are guys that go way over it. A guy like Adrian Adonis was a guy who in the 70s and 80s was like this New York tough, and he's like a New York or somewhere, New Jersey or New York. I think he might have been New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the 80s, he went into adorable Adrian Adonis and really pushed the envelope. And I remember being a kid watching this, just going like, yeah, this man is gay, and the other wrestlers don't like this. And it was real, like, Gorgeous George thing. You know
what's really interesting is that if you do steroids, right?
Right.
And if you do them and your body gets kind of morphed out and morphed up, right? When you stop doing them, you get breasts.
The tits.
So it's really interesting how you can go to this masculine as possible, and right after that is tit on man.
And it's literally estrogen, and it's like, it's tissue. They call it bitch tits. And isn't that what happens with Meatloaf in Fight Club? Is that he got bitch tits? Bob had bitch tits.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so because you can always tell, and again, being a wrestling head, you can always tell when a guy's like cycled off of roids, because they deflate a bit, and then they get the little bitch tit out the side.
Yeah.
Something I've never ever, I mean, in any you're lifting weights or this or that, or when I was younger and stuff and playing football, I'm like, I don't ever want to. First of all, I am steroids. Like
right.
I'm like, I can't. I want to get smaller, and I just feel like whatever I eat would either turn into fat or muscle, depending on what I'm doing about it. But my metabolism wasn't fast.
God.
And I'm like, that's the last thing I need is more tit.
Yeah.
Fat guys shouldn't ever do steroids at all, because then you do get a very well-researched character, the Meatloaf thing, because then you do get the bitch tits.
Was it a movie he was in? Was it about being fat?
It was Fight Club. In Fight Club, he was just one of the guys who ends up in Fight Club. And what was his name is, oh man, I forget they said his name is something, but I think
Robert Paulson.
Robert Paulson. And it was Bob. That's right. His name is Robert Paulson. And they say, in the movie, there's that line, Bob had bitch tits, and he's fighting. Just not a good, God bless you. You know what I mean? If you got some bitch tits, push it all the way. Try out for a wrestling federation, copy Adrian Adonis's gimmick, get soup, paint one of your eyes, be very colorful and make some money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
negative into a positive.
These days, that's what you got to do. We had a lady who came on here. She was a female truck driver, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, let's go back to that article real quick, Zach. It looked kind of interesting that Robert Paulson said at the end of that film, if you can. I want to chime this in here.
I brought my podcasting water jug.
Yeah, that's a lot, huh?
Yeah, I like water. It's pretty good. You like sink juice?
Yeah, I do like it. I'm trying to think of the most I've ever had. Oh, one time I went to my friend's and he's like, I bet you can't drink this, you little right?
Yeah.
And he probably shouldn't have said that, but he said it.
As tends to happen when you go to a friend's house.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So I drank a gallon of water, right? Yeah. And then I couldn't, I feel like I couldn't, open my eyes or something was wrong with me. So I was like, I'm going to go lay down. And they're like, yeah, go lay down, you little bitch.
Who are these people? Huh? These are good. These are friends of yours?
Yeah.
Were you in the 1%ers? Is that who did this?
Yeah.
They were 1%ers.
Yeah, they just fucking hated me.
Hey, man, we're out of beer. What are we going to do with Theo? How are we going to jump him in? I got an idea. We're going to see how much water he can drink. Yeah, I like it. Good idea. Let's see if he's one of us. I'll be down there in the swamps just taking a sip every once in a while I'm underwater for 19 minutes, wrestling alligators and drinking swamp water. You little pansy, you. See how much water you can drink.
Yeah, so Jesse made me go drink all this water, and then I laid down on my friend's room, fell asleep, and I peed, and it went corner to corner in the room.
Nice. What, in the room?
12 square feet.